This is Art Television.
Coming up, State of Business, sponsored by
UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss, SLT Mobitel Fiber,
IWS Aviation.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to State of Business on Art Television. I'm Aisha Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. Government expects to achieve year-end target of 1.3 million tourists. UN Women Publishers report on gender disparities in Sri Lanka. News in detail. The government announces that they expect to achieve the target of 1.3 million tourists by the end of the year. This was revealed during President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's sudden visit to the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority last Friday. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on Thursday inspected the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority and its affiliated institutions and instructed the officials to formulate programs to attract tourists to the island. Observing that Sri Lanka can be made the Asian destination for tourists, President Rajapaksa pointed out that obstacles should be removed and plans should be made to attract tourists through global promotion programs. Officials stated that more than 260,000 tourists have arrived in the country during the first quarter of the year and that the year's target of 1.3 million tourists can be achieved. However, President Rajapaksa also suggested that all sectors of tourism industry should be prepared to achieve this target. The officials from the Tourism Development Authority also told the President that the tourism industry has been entrusted with a target of $10 billion annually and the industry has been facilitated with all the required infrastructure. President Rajapaksa also had a light moment with newly recruited youth to the industry and elaborated on the employment opportunities which can be created by the tourism industry. Minister of Tourism Prasanna Ranatunga, Principal Advisor to President Lalit Veeratunga, Ministry Secretary S. Hettiarachchi, Chairman of the Tourism Development Authority, Kimberly Fernando, and several others were present at the occasion. The weekly economic indicators released by the CBSL reflects the impact of a volatile oil market. In the rail sector, NCPI-based headline inflation year-on-year increased to 17.5% in February 2022 from 16.8% in January 2022. NCPI-based headline inflation rose due to increases of item prices in both food and non-food categories. Meanwhile, year-on-year food and non-food inflation was recorded at 24.7% and 11% respectively in February 2022. Furthermore, the NCPI measured on an annual average basis increased to 9.3% in February 2022 from 8.1% in January 2022. From 19th to 25th March 2022, crude oil prices showed mixed performance. At the beginning of the week, oil prices increased on concerns regarding the EU joining the US in a Russian oil embargo and cessation of crude oil exports from Kazakhstan's terminal after storage damage. However, prices decreased towards the end of the week following consideration of the US and allies to release more oil from storage and the EU disagreeing on the Russian oil embargo. During this period, Brent and West Texas intermediate prices increased by 8.12 and $4.35 per barrel respectively. In the monetary sector, the weekly average weighted prime lending rate AWPR for the week ending 25th March 2022 increased by 25 basis points to 9.71% compared to the previous week. Reserve money increased compared to the previous week mainly due to currency in circulation. Total outstanding market liquidity was a deficit of 660.650 billion rupees by the end of the week compared to a deficit of 613.226 billion rupees by the end of the previous week. By 25th March 2022, the all share price index increased by 0.98% to 10,455.32 points, and the S&P SL20 index increased by 1.50% to 3,639.12 points compared to the index values of last week. In the external sector, during the year up to 25th March 2022, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated against the US dollar by 30.9%. Given the cross-currency exchange rate movements, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated against the Indian rupee by 29.1%, the euro by 29.1%, the pound sterling by 29.3%, and the Japanese yen by 26.9% during this period. Raigam Tele, Sri Lanka's only televisions and film awarding organisation, held its 17th Grand Award ceremony recently at the Shangri-La Hotel, Colombo. This year's award ceremony is a combined event due to the COVID-19 pandemic, conferred awards for both 2020 and 2021.
Raigam Teles was launched in 2005 by the Raigam Group of Companies, a famous local business conglomerate in the FMCG industry, to fill the gap that existed in conducting a regular award ceremony for the television industry. An independent, non-commercial body called the Raigam Teles Secretariat was established to conduct the event and is guided by a panel of eminent artists and academics. Today, Raigam Teles has become the most prominent television festival in Sri Lanka with 17 consecutive events. The high standards maintained when judging, innovative presentation with broad coverage by almost all television channels, and exposure on social media are factors contributing to this success. Raigam Teles has pioneered new industry concepts such as announcing nominations at a grand function prior to the main event, presenting winners with cash awards, and nominees with an insurance cover and testimonials. The organizers introduced a new category this time to recognize the most viewed television programs. These include teledramas, media programs, and news bulletins. Establishing a new trend in Sri Lankan award ceremony culture. The most popular television programs were identified following a scientific process which analyzes published data.
Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break.
Defying gravity doesn't define an athlete. It's the connection, a rhythm of consistency, the heart rate that makes life a sport.
With decades of precision comes a partnership between man and technology. Stay well connected at home or on the go with SLT Mobitel.
Everyone does not hold a key to your heart, and it's no secret. You genuinely trusted us with a special place in your heart as we brought good fortune and prosperity into your lives. During our journey of over 50 years, we have made your lives happier and prosperous. Our desire is to see you flourish and witness the prosperity of the entire nation. National Lotteries Board is dedicated to accomplish this humble mission.
NLB, live your dreams.
Welcome back after the break. In Sri Lanka, women are denied equal access to the job market not just because of social factors, but also by employers. This is the focus of a report launched by UN Women today titled Gender Disparities and Labour Market Challenges, the Demand for Women Workers in Sri Lanka. This report is amongst the first in the country to illustrate the largely unexplored factors on the part of the employers and firms that prevent women from entering the paid workforce. In 2019, only 36% of Sri Lankan women of working age were willing and able to engage in paid employment. Supply-side analysis has identified unpaid care work, skills deficit, and socio-cultural factors such as gender norms and stereotypes as underlying factors that hinder women from engaging in the formal labour force. It was revealed that unlike in other emerging economies, export orientation in Sri Lanka was not associated with an increased demand for women workers, reflecting the weak export orientation of the economy in recent times. The digital divide is also a major constraint for women's engagement in upcoming industries with potential to offer increased job opportunities. To ensure that women have the choice to work for pay without discrimination or bias, UN Women in calling for better policy, action and investment in Sri Lanka's formal enterprises. In light of the ongoing pandemic, it is recommended to promote digitization, automation and work-from-home arrangements, which will also help upgrade production processes. The importance of training women in mid-level occupational skills, especially in English language skills, is highlighted. Promoting small and medium-sized enterprises, female entrepreneurship, ownership and management is also highlighted as they generate more demand for women workers. Finally, an emphasis on the need to reform labor laws to facilitate flexible working hours and night work for women and setting up a social fund for maternity benefits is also recommended. Encouraging family-friendly workplace policies that support the retention of women employees even after marriage will ensure that more women are able to enter the paid workforce. Hana Singh Hamdi, President Coordinator of the UN in Sri Lanka, speaking at the recent launch of a report on gender equality, highlighted the need for policy that fosters equality. The report is titled Gender Disparities and Labour Market Challenges exposes the underlying biases faced by women in the Sri Lanka workplace and puts forward recommendations to improved conditions.
As noted by the World Bank, in just 15 years, more than 1 in 4, or 25% of Sri Lankans, will be over 60. In this context, we need to engage a greater number of the country's working age population, in particular women, in the labour force to achieve economic growth and sustain any development strategy. Thirdly, COVID-19 has already impacted women disproportionately and pushed more women out of work. As noted in the report, across sectors, female employment declined by nearly 8% between 2019 and 2020, driven mainly by halving of skilled female employment in the hospitality sector, owing to the decline in tourism. Now, with additional household care and care burden imposed by COVID-19, more women are no longer available to take up work or are not searching for work. Even when they do return to the labour force, it is usually the lower quality jobs with heightened job insecurity and weak social protection systems, which will have a negative spillover effects on families, households and communities.
In a major judgment last week, a United Nations treaty body called on Sri Lanka to repeal its law criminalizing adult consensual same-sex conduct, including between women. The case was brought under the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women by Rosana Flamer Caldera. Rosana Flamer Caldera is an LGBT rights activist who faced harassment and discrimination for her sexual orientation and human rights advocacy on behalf of sexual and gender minorities. The judgment by the UN Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women concerned Sri Lanka's penal code, a relic of British colonial rule that dates to 1883. Section 365 punishes carnal intercourse against the order of nature with up to 10 years in prison and a fine. Section 365A punishes any act of gross indecency with up to 2 years in prison and a fine. These provisions are widely understood to criminalize consensual sex between same-sex partners. Section 365A originally criminalized same-sex relations between men. However, the provision was amended in 1995 after the law was criticized for being discriminatory on the basis of sex to include same-sex relations between women. Globally, laws that criminalize same-sex relations are being repealed as they are discriminatory and harmful. The Indian Supreme Court struck down Penal Code Section 377 in 2018. In a 2016 report, Human Rights Watch documented that Sri Lanka's penal code impacts LGBT people's ability to access healthcare and housing and creates pressure to conceal and conform their identities. The CEDAW committee urges the government to decriminalize the same-sex sexual relations while providing the necessary protections and establishing support networks. Stay tuned for stock updates.
Defying gravity doesn't define an athlete. It's the connection, a rhythm of consistency, the heart rate that makes life a sport.
With decades of precision comes a partnership between man and technology. Stay well connected at home or on the go with SLT Mobitel.
Now, you can buy your ultra-fast fiber connection online through sltmobitel.lk and get special discounts.
Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a negative note today. The All Share Price Index dropped 313.03 points to close at 10,142.29, and the S&P SL20 dropped 105.46 points to close at 3,533.66. The turnover was 2.1 billion rupees and over 97 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. And that's all news for today. See you tomorrow at State of Business at the usual time. Until then, take care and good night.
State of Business was sponsored by
UHD quality video streaming. Internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
IWS Aviation.